Hi, welcome back to my channel. So glad to have you. Please hit the subscribe button if you would. Uh, Gets our videos out to more men, and I think it's useful for as many men as possible to watch these videos so that they too can become a Renaissance man. All right, as a reminder, throat cancer has left my voice difficult to understand, and so if you would hit the closed caption feature. I've edited that material so that you can read it and it will make sense, and punctuation and grammar will be good, and well, that way you won't miss things that you might miss otherwise. All right, are you a man of honor? Well, certainly the Renaissance man is a man of honor all the time about everything. So we need to think about that a little bit, because I think if you ask any man if they were a man of honor, they would say, well, sure I am. But that's not always the case. They're going to be wrong. Sometimes some of these men will think they're honorable, but they're not. So let's discuss what that means so that we know if you're dealing with a man of honor, or if indeed you are also could be considered a man of honor. So what is it? It's a quality of a person that is both social teaching and of personal ethos that manifests itself as a code of conduct and has various elements such as valor, chivalry, honesty, and compassion. So, they're talking about a code, not just one or two aspects of your life, but a code that you can follow. And if you do, you'll be considered honorable. So, those codes, I think it's good to have examples or things that we can look at and pattern our lives around. So I've thought of some examples that I think might be helpful. For those of us that were in the military, we have the Uniform Code of Military Justice. All right, so that covers crimes punished under civilian law, but also punishes other conduct that affects good order and discipline in the military. Good order and discipline. All right, so that Code of Military Justice will cover really all aspects of your life while you're in the military. If you break a law in civil society, you would be punished under this code. But there are also areas of the code that really only apply to military people. So, for example, you are not allowed to not follow a direct order if it's lawful. You must follow a direct order if it's lawful. Don't have a choice. This is what you are expected to do if you're in the military. Whether you like the order or not, whether you want to do it or not, you need to follow it as long as it's lawful. So there, again, if you take the code as a whole, is a good example of how you might want to live your life, whether you're in the military or not, to maintain good order and discipline, right? Another example might be the Ten Commandments. Very good example. So whether you're a Christian or Jewish or not, these Ten Commandments are certainly something that could be followed, and if you did, you would be considered an honorable person, I think. So things like thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not steal, etc., etc. Those are rules that you would follow if you are a man of honor. So think about that, perhaps using those Ten Commandments as an example of how you might live and be honorable in doing so. Now, I have an interest, as I've talked to you in the past, I have an interest in the martial arts. So the Code of Conduct by the samurai, Code Bushido, would be something that would certainly you might want to look at. So Bushido, way of the warrior. So these were this was a code of conduct used by the samurai, the ancient warriors of Japan. So Japan has had about 300 years of civil war. This code of conduct, depending on what region you were from, what time frame we are discussing, might be a little different because you might have different opinions between one army and another army, or one leader and another leader about how his military should behave, but very similar. And so the authors today, they would have taken a summary of a lot of these different codes from different areas, different time frames, and they've kind of melded them into a code that the reader can look at and get an understanding about what the Code Bushido was. Most authors will use 7, 8, or 9 aspects that a samurai would be expected to follow. And so if you read two authors and there's some slight differences, don't let that bother you. It's not that one's right or wrong. It's that they've probably looked at different areas within Japan or different time frames. So a Code Bushido, code of conduct expected of the samurai. A general summary of the code includes justice, courage, mercy, respect, honesty, loyalty, and self-control. So those are all things that would certainly be help you be considered an honorable person if you follow these things. Justice, in the case of the samurai, they were often expected to be the police force as well as the warriors and part of the government. So a samurai might be given a small village, for example, to watch over, and the samurai would make sure that that village is producing the rice or the fish that the army would need. Also pay taxes, and the samurai would collect the taxes. So that samurai would be expected to keep peace and keep the law in his village. So that would be his responsibility. So justice was important. Courage, certainly you need courage. Time to go to war. You can't go, well, I don't feel like doing this today. I'm going to turn around and run away. So obviously a samurai would be expected to have courage so that he could do what he needed to do as part of the army. Mercy, there certainly would be times when mercy is called for, and an honorable person would grant that mercy in those cases. Respect, showing respect for your elders, your superiors, really makes you look good, makes you look like an honorable person. Honesty is very important. You must keep your word. So samurai were famous for this. So once you gave your word, once you promised something, you never went back. No matter what the circumstances were, you gave your word, that word was good, as if it were a contract written in blood, if you will. Loyalty, all right, you need to be loyal to your family or your superiors, and you wouldn't change sides. That would be considered disloyal, right? You'd be considered cowardly, though there are some famous cases when it happened. But those samurai who did that, they really were always looked at askance after that, because could you trust them? No, you probably couldn't. All right, loyalty, self-control. Self-control, so important. It was important for a samurai. Have the self-control to continue training, even when you weren't in a battle, so you keep your skills up. Self-control, so you wouldn't become overweight. Self-control, so you would become an alcoholic. So those are things that a samurai would be expected of a samurai, but also would be expected of a Renaissance man as well. All right, so those are 3 pretty good examples of codes of conduct that you might use to shape your own life, to create your own code of conduct. So take different aspects. If that things do not apply to you, don't use them. But actually kind of create your own code of Bushido, a code for yourself of how you would conduct yourself to look and be an honorable person. So a Renaissance man is a man of honor. something very important to think about. Okay, I think that was all I wanted to cover for today. Again, please hit subscribe. If you have any comments, go ahead and put them in. I've had some really wonderful comments. There's some really wonderful people out there, and I appreciate that very much. I think that's all for today. I'll have another video for you within a week or so. So thank you, and God bless.